Pin Mien Ego. Oprah breaks silence on Meghan. I should have never trusted her. For years, the world believed the Oprah interview with Meghan Markle was the moment that told everything. The moment when secrets would finally be spoken, and the truth, whatever it really was, would finally come into the light. But the part people didn't know, the part hidden behind the bright California garden and Oprah's calm voice, was that something happened off camera, something no one was supposed to mention again. It began with a whisper, a quiet confession from someone close to the production. A simple sentence. Oprah should have never trusted her. No one explained what it meant. Not at first. But when Oprah's own team later broke their silence behind closed doors, a different picture started to form. A picture of a moment Oprah never shared with the world. A moment that changed the way she looked at the interview sitting right in front of millions. And it all comes back to one question Oprah wanted to ask, and the one question Meghan would not allow. This is where the real story begins. Before the camera lights warmed the garden, before Meghan adjusted her dress and Harry straightened his jacket, before Oprah took her seat in that wooden armchair, something unusual happened. Several members of Oprah's production team had been preparing the area, checking the camera angles, adjusting microphones, doing the quiet work that always happens before a major broadcast. And while they moved around Meghan, something caught their attention. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a word. It was a movement. A shift underneath Meghan's clothing. Small, quick, but strange enough that the people who noticed froze. They had seen pregnant women before. They knew the natural way a belly sits, the slow, even weight of it. But this, whatever it was, didn't look like that. It looked off. Words spread quietly among the crew. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet murmur passing from one person to the next. Enough for Oprah herself to pick up on the tension in the air. So, she did what she is famous for doing. She prepared to ask about it, to bring it up gently on camera the way only Oprah can. But she never did because before the cameras rolled, before the first question could escape her mouth, Meghan leaned in, calm, composed, and very aware. She looked at Oprah and said a sentence that froze the moment in place. It's not the right time, no explanation, no details. Just a soft warning that settled the entire conversation. According to those who were there, Oprah paused, not because she agreed and not because she was afraid, but because she understood the weight of that moment. She knew that asking the wrong question, or even the right question at the wrong time, could ignite a war between the biggest interviewer in the world and the most talked about woman in the royal sphere. So Oprah stayed silent and the world never heard the question she planned to ask. This was the first sign that the interview was hiding something deeper than anyone realized. To understand why the moment mattered so much, you have to go back before Oprah, before Montecito, before any interview, back to the early days of Meghan's first pregnancy. Because the whispers didn't begin with Oprah's crew. They began long before that. From the moment Meghan appeared with her early baby bump, something felt different to many people who saw her in person. Her belly didn't always look the same from day to day. Sometimes it sat higher, sometimes lower, sometimes round, sometimes strangely square. At one event, she'd look heavily pregnant. 2 days later, she'd look noticeably smaller. None of these details were wild enough to make headlines alone, but together they built a quiet pattern. There were photos where the belly folded sharply when she bent down, sharper than a natural curve should. There were videos where it shifted when she crouched, moving almost independently of her body's motion. A few moments even showed what looked like inflation or sudden deflation, as if the shape adjusted inside her clothing. Most pregnant women experience changes. Most bumps look different in different outfits. But Meghan's movements drew a different kind of attention because they were sharp, quick, and strangely mechanical. Still, no one said anything openly until the Oprah interview was announced. That was the moment when people began waiting, wondering whether Oprah, of all people, would bring these strange moments to light. Oprah had asked celebrities about their marriages, affairs, addictions, feuds, everything under the sun. Surely she would ask about this, but the backstage moment changed everything. Meghan's gentle warning, the shift no one was supposed to mention, By the time the interview went live, Oprah knew exactly what she could ask and what she couldn't. And the story behind those early pregnancy whispers stayed locked behind the scenes, hidden from the millions glued to their screens. Long before Oprah ever sat down in Montecito, the palace made a mistake so simple and so quiet that at first barely anyone noticed. But later, it became one of the biggest cracks in the entire story. On May 6, 2019, reporters received an official message from the palace. The Duchess has gone into labor. Within minutes, cameras rolled, journalists prepared live updates, and the world waited for the next announcement. Everyone braced for hours and hours of labor coverage. The kind royal watchers had seen before with Diana, with Kate, and generations before them. But then, only a short while later, something shocking happened. The palace announced that Archie had already been born, not just minutes earlier, not just moments ago, but hours before the "she's in labor" message ever went out. People inside newsrooms blinked in confusion. How could the palace announce labor after the child had already arrived? It wasn't a small mistake. It wasn't a typo. It was a complete reversal of a royal timeline, one that had always been handled with careful precision for every royal birth before this one. Some said it was a simple communication slip. Others said it was an attempt to control the story. But no matter the reason, the damage was done. A seed of doubt was planted. If the palace could bend the timeline of a birth, one of the most important events in royal tradition, then what else could be shifted, hidden, or reshaped? What else might the public be hearing only after the fact? This moment, though quiet, was the first time the official record felt fragile. And once that feeling settles in, it doesn't go away. Royal births have always followed a pattern. A pattern so familiar that people recognize it instantly. The steps outside the hospital, the proud parents holding the newborn, the flashing cameras, the reporters, the single photograph that becomes part of royal history forever. But when Meghan and Harry's turn arrived, none of that happened. There were no hospital steps, no press gathered outside, no waving, no newborn wrapped in a blanket for the world to see. Instead, Meghan and Harry chose privacy. Archie's first appearance didn't take place in front of a cheering crowd. It took place days later inside Windsor Castle, behind thick stone walls and heavy wooden doors. The photo call was brief, quiet, and tightly controlled. The baby's face barely visible, the atmosphere calm and private. To some, this was refreshing, a modern break from tradition. To others, it was the second sign that something was being hidden. And the more controlled the rollout became, the more questions began to stir. Why avoid the hospital presentation? Why delay the first phone call? Why show so little? The decisions weren't dramatic, but they were unusual. And unusual decisions paired with a timeline mistake, paired with a birth that didn't follow royal custom, created a perfect storm for whispers to grow. This wasn't just a modern couple doing things their way. This was a royal story unfolding behind closed doors with strict privacy, careful timing, and an intentional distance from the public eye. By the time Archie was officially presented, the story felt less like a joyful royal tradition and more like a controlled press event, shaped exactly the way Meghan and Harry wanted it. And once again, silence filled the spaces where answers could have lived. 2 years later, Meghan and Harry sat across from Oprah Winfrey in Montecito. The garden was peaceful, the sunlight warm, and the birdsong soft. But beneath the calm surface, the atmosphere felt electric, like the air right before a storm. After all the tension backstage, after the warnings and the whispered NDAs, Oprah began the interview knowing there were places she could go and places she couldn't. But then Meghan dropped a different bombshell, one that no one expected, one that instantly changed the entire direction of the interview. She revealed that while she was pregnant, there were concerns and conversations inside the royal family about how dark Archie's skin might be. Oprah froze. Her eyes widened. She leaned forward and in the calm, firm voice only Oprah can deliver, she asked, "What? Who is having that conversation with you?" Meghan refused to say. She said it would be too damaging. And just like that, the interview turned from a discussion about royal life into something deeper, heavier, and far more explosive. The world suddenly forgot about all the rumors around the pregnancy timeline because this new claim overshadowed everything. Within 24 hours, Oprah returned on air to clarify that Meghan had told her privately that the Queen and Prince Philip were not involved. 2 days later, Buckingham Palace released a short but powerful statement. Some recollections may vary. Those 4 words had weight. They were polite but firm, a line in the sand. From that moment on, 2 stories existed: Meghan's version and the palace's version, running side by side, never touching, never agreeing. And while the world was debating racism, mental health, family fractures, and royal divisions, the quiet question Oprah never asked stayed buried beneath it all. It remained the secret swallowed by the interview, the one moment Oprah never spoke about publicly, and the one moment Meghan never addressed again. And that silence, silent as stone, waited beneath the biggest interview of the decade, like a shadow. For 2 years, the world believed Meghan's words during the Oprah interview were the final truth. The claim about Archie's possible skin tone became one of the most powerful sentences ever spoken on television. It shifted public opinion, it changed conversations, and it became a central point in the story of Meghan versus the monarchy. But then, something unexpected happened. In 2023, Harry sat down for his own interviews. One with Tom Bradby on ITV and another with CBS in the United States. This time the setting was different. The atmosphere was calmer, the questions were softer but deeper. And Harry, now promoting his memoir Spare, chose to explain the Oprah moment in a new way. He said firmly, "I never said my family were racist." He framed the conversation Meghan described not as racism, but as unconscious bias, something many institutions struggle with. Something he believed could be corrected through understanding. But interviewers pressed him. If the conversation wasn't about racism, then why didn't he correct the record back in 2021? Why let the world carry one version of the story for so long? Harry didn't have a clear answer. For many watching, this sudden shift didn't calm the situation. It stirred it. It created another question mark in a story already filled with missing pieces. The Oprah interview, once seen as the final word, now looked incomplete, almost blurry. 2 versions, 2 interpretations, 2 truths that didn't match. And once again, silence filled the space between them. Now we enter the part of the story whispered more than spoken. The stories that drifted quietly from one insider to another. Never confirmed, never publicly addressed, but never forgotten. February 2019, New York City. The Mark Hotel glittered with celebrities. Serena Williams, Amal Clooney, Gayle King. A luxurious baby shower for Meghan. Every moment photographed, every detail analysed. The world saw the glamour, the smiles, the designer gowns. But behind the scenes, word from the street painted a different picture. According to whispers, during one evening outing with her close friend Marcus Anderson, Meghan allegedly left something behind in her room. Not a purse, not jewellery, a pregnancy bump, a prosthetic one. The rumour didn't appear in tabloids. It didn't erupt online. It grew quietly like a shadow behind the bright lights of the hotel. And while the verified facts remained simple, the baby shower happened. The celebrity friends were there. This forgotten bump rumour clung to the event like a secret no one could fully prove or disprove. It was another piece in a long, complicated story. Not loud, not dramatic, but always there. Now, the story returns to the place where it began. That peaceful Montecito garden where Oprah and Meghan sat facing each other. The soft California sun, shining as if nothing in the world could possibly be wrong. People believed they were watching a complete story unfold. A story about love, a story about pain, a story about escape. But what they didn't know, what no one outside the crew understood, was that the most important moment of that day happened before the cameras ever started rolling. It was the hesitation in Oprah's eyes as she weighed the question she was never allowed to ask. It was the gentle warning from Meghan, "It's not the right time." It was the shifting shapes and thoughtful solution of its clothing. It was the truth left just outside the frame. And that's the strange thing about silence. Silence doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits in the spaces between official documents and whispered claims. It waits in the difference between what Oprah wanted to ask and what she was told not to.